Marstons Pedigree Amber Ale.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I have got one tonight from Marstons. Now, Pedigree is something I think I should have reviewed years ago. Well, not years ago, but months ago, as it's sort of one of the sort of more well-known Marstons beers. And I know people have different opinions on Marstons and what they do, etc. But they have taken over a few breweries, and yeah, they've pissed people off. They've apparently, I have no evidence to suggest it, but I strongly suspect it, that they have changed the recipes on certain beers. The one being that immediately springs to mind is the Witchwood Hobgoblin. I don't think that tastes as good as it used to, and that's only happened after the takeover from Marstons. Whether that's had an influence on it or not, I don't know. But they themselves have been taken over by Carlsberg. I'm sure you know all that. I did a video about the takeover, and yeah, there's a bit of information about what's gone on with that. They're a really well-known brewery. They've been going years, and Pedigree, or P, this used to be known as P, believe it or not. He's the head brewer who was around at the time, and that's what they've got on the front of it. And this was renamed in a staff competition, so that's where Pedigree gets its name. One of the staff members, yeah, it says it on the back here, George Peard, that's him on the front there. He's the, or he was the head brewer at the time when it was renamed. But it's a really nice beer. I've had it before. I used to drink it when I lived in London. I used to go to cricket a fair bit, the 2020s at Lord's, and I'm a fan of Middlesex, and all my West Ham mates are Essex fans, so we used to go down there, and they'd always have Marstons Pedigree on tap from keg, and I always made a point of having a Marstons or several when I went down there. It was just such a good beer on tap for the time, and it was really suited to the cricket as well. And you know, you could session it. I've had evenings where I've drank Marstons Pedigree. I haven't had it now. Christ, I'm going back a bit. That would have been about 8 or 9 years ago. I haven't been to the cricket in a long time. It's just simply for the fact I've moved out of London now, and I just don't get the time to go. And I should do, really. I've got Kent down the road, so when Middlesex play Kent, I should go to that. But yeah, I don't know what they say. They've got Spitfire on tap down here now. Shepherd Neame do all the beer at the Kent County Ground in Canterbury. So yeah, but this is what they serve up at Lord's. So let's see if it's as good as I remember it. Yeah, I was, just before I read up about this, I was trying to think about the last time I'd had some, and it must have been about 8 years ago. I only used to drink this on tap down at Lord's. It was the best beer they had on. The Guinness they had was really not good. I didn't like the Guinness that was down there, so I used to drink this. Yeah, it was a really nice pint from a keg, and it was, I think, because it was flowing, everyone was drinking it, and it was going out the door like really quick. There was a high turnover on it, and you're always going to get it quite fresh from the keg. So yeah, it was a nice beer. This is a 500ml bottle. It's 4.5%. This is bottle conditioned, so there is obviously sediment at the bottom of it. They're saying not to pour the sediment in, but I am going to do that anyway. What does it say? Yeah, this is just telling you about the history and the pedigree, no pun intended, of the beer. Marstons, of course, from Burton, so this has got Burton water in it. Tried the Old Roger the other day. Not bad. It was okay. Flavours were a bit muted. You'd expect that from a semi-macro brewed beer like the Marstons do. I'm expecting more or less the same from this. I really can't remember. It's been that long since I've tried Marstons Pedigree. So let's stop guessing and let's get it open. Right, there's the cap. Typical Marstons cap. Sure you've seen these before. Oh, do you know what? I've got a new lens coming, and hopefully it's going to be here tomorrow. If you haven't seen anything from it already. Look, autofocus. You fucking tosser. You're going into the landfill. Why will you not work? Oh, you know what a Marstons caps looks like anyway. It's got the 3 barrels on it. Fucking autofocus. Anyway, let's get in the glass. Now they say not to pour the yeast in, but I always do pour the yeast in. I'm sure they know better than me, but it's just something I do. There it is. So I'm just going to pour a little bit in the glass there. A lot of carbonation, which is sort of typical from Marstons. There is a hell of a lot of aroma coming from this. Oh yeah. It actually does smell quite nice. Lovely hops on this. Earthy and spicy British hops. Touch of caramel coming from that. It does smell quite tasty, like a typical British beer. Now they've classed this as an amber ale. I'm going to try and get an aggressive pour on this. Get a bit of head on it. There it is in the glass. Nice amber colour. Well, it is an amber ale, so that's what you'd expect. Bottle conditioned. So there's some sediment left there. I shall pour that in a bit. But let's get this down the hatch. Bottoms up. Not bad. Not bad. I'm going to take a mouthful now with the yeast sediment in there. That's probably made it a bit more cloudy. Yep, certainly has. That was clear before, gone a bit cloudy now. Let's see what it's like with that in it. Okay, slight metallic taste, biscuit malt that on the finish and in the mouth, and there's some earthy and spicy hops. A lot of carbonation, which seems to be a trademark of Marstons. They put a hell of a lot of carbonation in there. Now I don't know whether that's because it's bottle conditioned, could well be actually, but Burtonisation, which is the process of adding gypsum to the water, which a lot of breweries copy. They obviously don't have to do it because they're using Burton water. It's got all these minerals already present in the water, so you've got that high sulfate and calcium in there, which apparently agitates the CO2, and with it being bottle conditioned, that can only increase the carbonation on this beer. But it really is highly carbonated. But not too obtrusive. I can feel it fizzing around in the mouth, but the bubbles are really small, so it's not obtrusive. There's quite a bit of a biscuit finish on that. More so than caramel. And there's a nice little bit of spice on there too. But again, as with all the Marston beers, and I'm assuming this is because of the big batches that it's brewed in, the flavours are quite subdued. They're not really, they don't really jump out on you like certain beers do. Now, maybe that's not a bad thing if you're going to session this, and you know, Pedigree is a good session ale in my opinion. I know because I've done it, and it's very agreeable. The flavour is muted, as it always is with, not always, but in a lot of the cases with Marstons beer, but it's still drinkable, and the flavours are still there, they're just toned down, and this is quite nice. As amber ales go, it's not outstanding, really isn't, but it's a good beer to, you know, to start a night with and just carry on, because it will just go down without touching the sides. You won't really, you know, after 5 or 6 pints you won't think, oh, fucking hell, this is a bit rich, or this is a bit too much. It's just one of them beers. It's a bit of a chugger, if you know what I mean. Typical Marston beer. Muted flavours, but reasonably drinkable. Biscuit malt, earth, and a little bit of spice. Everything you'd expect, just all toned down a little bit. But on the whole, not bad. So what's the verdict on Marstons Pedigree? As I say, it's a typical Marstons beer. The flavours aren't huge, but they're there. And I think this is because they're brewing them in such big batches that you just can't get the big flavours that smaller batch brewers get from their beers. Now, I tried the Old Roger yesterday, and that's, you know, that's one of their strong ales, or an old ale if you like, and again it was the same. The flavours were nice, there was nice sweetness there was licorice, there was a bit of spirit alcohol, but it was all toned down. If they could, I know they can't, but if they could get them flavours just amplified a little bit more, their beer would be really good. Maybe that's not what they want. They want to produce beers that are, you know, chuggers. Well, most of their beers anyway. Pedigree, certainly, it's renowned for it, and I've done it before in the past, and it is that sort of beer. Quite nice, just lacking on the flavour a little bit. For that reason, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Would I recommend it? If it's on draft and you know the landlord is, you know, can keep ales, or there's a lot of people drinking it, then this is going to be nice. But just don't expect massive flavours from it. It's just, you know, quite mellow in its flavour, but it's certainly a drinkable session ale. So on that score, you're sorted if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, and I'll recommend it for them reasons. And remember, beer is working class champagne.